So imagine if you jumped out of an airplane on a tandem skydive, right? But like only one of you is actually wearing a parachute.
Oh, that is a terrifying image.
Right. And you're on the way down just screaming something like, I am responsible for my own body. Well, that empowerment mantra isn't exactly going to save you when gravity finally kicks in.
Yeah, I mean, the pavement really doesn't care how independent you feel in that moment.
Exactly. The pavement does not care. And yet, structurally speaking, that is exactly how millions of people are navigating modern intimacy today. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at this massive, pervasive phenomenon of hookup style dating. But, for this one, we're completely throwing out the usual gossip and the interpersonal drama.
Right, because the source material we're digging into today takes a really hard, purely structuralist approach to intimacy. I mean, basically treats our romantic lives like architecture.
Yeah, and it's asking a rather terrifying question. Okay, let's unpack this. What happens when people desperately seek a complete emotional and physical experience, basically building the penthouse suite of a relationship, but they completely forget to pour the concrete foundation?
Well, I mean, you get a structure that looks beautiful on the outside, but is uniquely designed to just collapse on whoever happens to be standing underneath it when the wind blows.
Which is usually the most vulnerable person in the dynamic, right?
Exactly. We are looking at a huge cultural shift where people are trying to extract this deep, intense closeness entirely outside of any institutional safeguards. And when things inevitably fracture, there's literally no safety net to catch the fallout.
So to really ground this for you listening, our sources dive into a very specific case study involving two people. The text refers to them as Zhang San, which is basically just a cultural equivalent to like John Doe and 045.
Yeah, and we should probably clarify right away, 045 sounds a little dystopian.
It totally does, like a sci-fi movie, but it's just her anonymized subject number in this broader sociological study. We're using their very real interaction here, not to moralize or, pass judgment on anyone's sex life.
Right, it's just a diagnostic sample.
Exactly. It's a sample to understand this broader shift.
And it's a perfect sample for that, too, because it highlights how this modern dating style operates like a highly deceptive user interface.
Ooh, a UI. I like that analogy.
Yeah, like think about a beautifully designed app on your phone. It's super intuitive, the buttons are smooth, it just feels completely safe to use, but you have no idea that, the back-end code is completely unencrypted and just exposing all your personal data to the world.
Wow, yeah.
The hookup style dating outlined in the text functions the exact same way. It flawlessly simulates the UI of a committed relationship.
Right. You get the rapid fire direct messaging, the deep late night conversations where you're suddenly uncovering childhood traumas within 2 days.
Yeah, the physical contact, and eventually even moving in together or staying over constantly.
Yeah.
It visually and emotionally looks like a long-term commitment, but it entirely bypasses the back-end security.
Which would be the actual verification of shared responsibility. Okay, let's talk about the specifics of that UI between Zhang San and 045, because it is kind of chilling how normal it all sounds.
It really is just an everyday story.
Right, like they didn't meet at some crowded, chaotic nightclub at 2 a.m. They connected over a highly specific shared niche interest. They were both collecting items at an antique market.
Which immediately creates a false sense of deep shared values.
Exactly. And from there, they escalated straight to video chats, immediately confirming, they were real people who just clicked. And then they started using these highly affectionate, familial terms for each other.
Yeah, the translation notes point out these terms akin to sister and brother.
Which is wild because that instantly hacks your brain's evolutionary wiring, right? It makes you feel this immediate sense of familial trust and protection. Within days, they are staying overnight together.
Yeah, if you were just reading the raw transcripts of their chats, you would absolutely think you were reading the first act of this sweeping epic romance.
You really would.
But what's fascinating here is how the source author identifies that specific dynamic. The text calls this romantic language, and it acts as this sort of narrative shell that completely disguises structural and physical risks as mere emotional choices.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Like when someone is speaking the language of a soulmate, you don't actually feel like you're taking a physical gamble.
Exactly. The romantic script is so immersive, so well designed, that it renders the participants completely unable to accurately assess the danger they are in. They feel the emotional safety of the romance, so they just become blind to the physical and structural risks of the hookup reality.
Okay, but let me push back on the mechanics of that blindness for a second, because when you look at someone like Zhang San, utilizing this romantic language so effectively, is the text implying that this is a calculated, malicious deception? Like, is he acting like a predator, consciously running a scam here?
That's a great question, but the author actually strongly leans toward no. It is a deeply ingrained cultural script.
So it's not some evil master plan.
Right. Zhang San likely isn't sitting in a dark room plotting this masterful deception. He is just stepping into a predefined, totally frictionless behavioral pattern that our current society has completely normalized. I mean, he wants closeness, she wants closeness, and culture has just handed them this script that simulates it instantly.
So if neither of them is inherently malicious and they both just genuinely want this deep connection, why is it that the moment someone tries to introduce like basic safety into the dynamic, the whole thing just completely falls apart?
Because of the fantasy.
Right. I mean, if the romantic script is so powerful, why can't you just have the romance and the safety checks?
Because introducing safety breaks the illusion of what the text calls the complete experience. The author delves heavily into the psychology of the mood killer.
Ah, the dreaded mood killer.
Yes. In the heat of the moment, these participants are chasing this cinematic, uninterrupted sense of wholeness. Taking a pause to, ask for a recent STD test report or insisting on a condom, it introduces a clinical administrative reality right into the middle of a fantasy space.
It shatters the UI and forces you to look at the unencrypted code.
Beautifully put. Yes, exactly.
And the sources mentioned that bringing up those safety measures is actively stigmatized now. Like the person asking for safety is accused of harboring distrust or basically just ruining the atmosphere.
Which is incredibly manipulative, even if it's not conscious.
Yeah, but here's where it gets really interesting because playing devil's advocate for a second, isn't that a perfectly natural human instinct? I mean, nobody, literally nobody, wants to pause a deeply passionate, vulnerable moment to conduct a medical interview.
Of course not. It's awkward.
We are wired for spontaneity. So why is the text framing this supernatural desire for a seamless experience as a massive structural crisis?
Well, because treating safety as a mood killer takes our natural instinct for spontaneity and basically weaponizes it against our own survival. It's a systemic weakening of risk management.
How so?
Well, think about it. When we existed within strong institutional safeguards, like where families were heavily intertwined or your public reputation was on the line, a bit of spontaneity didn't carry this massive existential risk. The structure caught you,
Oh, I see.
but in a vacuum. In today's landscape, this blind pursuit of an uninterrupted experience guarantees that all the inevitable risks are just pushed into the future. It's basically an avoidance of momentary social friction in exchange for immense potential tragedy.
Wow. And the most sobering aspect of that transaction is who actually pays the bill when it comes due.
Always the vulnerable party.
Always. If that to lift risk materializes like an unexpected pregnancy, a chronic illness, or honestly just profound emotional trauma from sudden abandonment, the cost is almost never split 50-50. The vulnerable party, the one with less social, physical, or financial power, just absorbs the entire impact.
While the other person can literally just uninstall the app and walk away.
Exactly. That asymmetrical fallout is the structural reality hiding right behind all that flowery romantic language. You basically have one person enjoying the beautiful view from the penthouse and another person plummeting to the ground when the floor inevitably gives out.
It's brutal, which really forces us to ask how an entire generation ended up adopting a system that facilitates such a massive, unequal transfer of risk.
Right, how do we get here?
To trace the origins of this dating vacuum, the source material breaks down three major societal shifts. The first pillar is the exit of institutional support.
Okay, so looking backward to traditional structures.
Yeah, like rigid religious ethics, tight-knit community family systems, and the historical institution of marriage. For a long time, those provided the absolute framework for intimacy.
And to be fair, the text is incredibly nuanced about this, right? It doesn't romanticize the past at all.
Not even a little bit. It explicitly acknowledges that those old frameworks could be heavily oppressive, especially toward women. I mean, they often function as mechanisms of control rather than genuine care.
Right, but purely from a structural standpoint, they functioned as an undeniable safety net. They enforced a shared responsibility through massive social and economic penalties for abandonment.
Exactly. If a man in a tight-knit village community acted recklessly, his reputation was destroyed, his family faced consequences, there was actual skin in the game.
But today, we have liberated sex from those restrictive structures, which, sounds fantastic on paper.
Oh, absolutely.
But the problem is we completely failed to build a new safety mechanism to replace the old ones. It's like we tore down the oppressive walls, but we accidentally tore down the load-bearing columns with them.
Leaving individuals to face all the biological and emotional risks completely alone.
Which brings us to the second pillar, right?
Yes, and this is arguably the most insidious one, the illusion of self-responsibility. We live in an era totally dominated by this hyper-individualistic mantra. You hear constantly, right? I am responsible for my own body. I am an independent adult making my own choices.
And it feels incredibly empowering to say that.
It sounds super empowering, but as a concept applied to intimacy, the text argues it is a complete biological fallacy.
Because events like pregnancy or the transmission of STDs are, by their very definition, collective events. They require two people.
Exactly. Going back to 045 for a second. She might tell herself she's being entirely self-responsible by choosing to engage with Zhang San.
Right.
But she cannot independently manage the consequences of an unwanted pregnancy or a severe health injury without his cooperation. And under the modern rules of hookup-style dating, he has zero structural, social, or legal obligation to provide that cooperation.
It brings us right back to that tandem skydiving analogy from the start. Screaming about self-responsibility during a shared biological event is just a dangerous mathematical error. You are willingly taking on 100% of the long-term risk for a 50% variable that you have absolutely no control over.
It's wild when you put it like that. Modern dating culture has essentially taken corporate liability shielding and applied it directly to human intimacy.
Oh man, that is so bleak. We've privatized the pleasure and socialized the risk completely onto the individual.
Yeah. And the third pillar, accelerating all of this, basically making it happen faster and more frequently than ever before in human history, is internet efficiency.
Right, the algorithms. Because the platforms we use are quite literally designed to compress the timelines of human connection. The text highlights how tags work in this context, right? Like Zhang San and 045 matching over an antique market tag.
Yeah, that wasn't just a cute random detail. It's a technological shortcut. It artificially speeds up the feeling of shared identity.
Because you see a tag that matches your niche hobby, and your brain instantly says, oh wow, they are just like me. We are the same.
Exactly. And then you add in the efficiency of direct messaging, maybe a quick video call to verify they aren't a bot, and suddenly a relationship timeline that historically required months of community vetting, meeting friends, observing behavior.
It's just squashed into 2 weeks.
Yes. 2 highly intense micro relationship weeks. Intimacy has basically been transformed into a raw resource.
And the technology optimized the speed at which you can extract that emotional and physical resource. But it deliberately bypassed the slow, cumbersome, unsexy process of actually building structural trust.
Because algorithms are built for engagement, not for safety. They give you the profound feeling of knowing someone without the actual reality of vetting them.
So if we take a step back and look at the whole board here, we are operating in a system that is incredibly fast, drenched in highly romanticized language, completely devoid of a societal safety net, and operating under a mathematically impossible banner of individual responsibility.
It is a perfect storm.
So what does this all mean? Like, what is the alternative? Because nobody is advocating for a return to oppressive, forced traditional marriages. But this current free-for-all is just devastatingly harmful to the vulnerable people involved.
Well, this is where the author of our source text moves from just diagnosing the structural failure to proposing a genuinely profound solution. They introduce a framework they call a structuralist ethics of intimacy.
Structuralist ethics, okay.
Yeah, it's an attempt to find a middle ground that acknowledges reality without sacrificing safety.
So how does a structuralist ethics work when the rubber actually meets the road? Like, for a normal person?
It works by establishing a very clear, grounded rule that rejects the extremes on both ends of the spectrum. It rejects the conservative demand for mandated traditionalism, but it equally rejects the modern liberal romanticization of totally unrestricted, consequence-free sexual freedom.
Okay, so what is the core principle?
The core principle is this. Sexual desire is real, it's natural, and it's valid. But any behavior that requires institutional protection to run safely must occur under institutional protection.
Wait, hold on. I need to make this concrete for the listeners because institutional protection sounds like something you need to, file paperwork for at the DMV.
Right, right.
If we aren't talking about getting married in a church or signing a state-sanctioned contract, what does institutional protection actually look like for, say, a 25-year-old swiping on a dating app right now?
It means verifiable shared stakes.
Verifiable shared stakes.
Exactly. It means before you enter a physically or emotionally risky situation with someone, there must be a tangible social contract in place. So for that 25-year-old today, that might look like forcing the connection out of the private anonymous DM box and into the light of a shared reality.
So, like introducing them to your friend group.
Yes. Meeting their friends, establishing clear, mutual community ties where that person's reputation is genuinely on the line if they act maliciously or cause harm. It's about ensuring that if things go wrong, the cost isn't solely yours to bear.
It's demanding skin in the game.
Exactly.
Because if an action carries massive structural risks, like pregnancy, disease, or deep emotional bonding, you simply cannot safely perform it in a structural vacuum. If you do, you are essentially taking out a high interest payday loan on your own future physical and emotional well being just to fund a momentary present pleasure.
That is a perfect way to put it. That is the essence of structuralist ethics. And the coolest part is the author didn't just theorize this from some academic ivory tower.
Right, there's a personal connection.
A huge one.
Yeah.
The most compelling part of this text is that the author developed this entire ethical framework by personally refusing the romantic script offered by a Zhang San figure in their own life.
Wow, so they were actually in the situation.
They were. They felt the powerful pull of that beautiful UI, the offer of the complete experience without all the heavy, boring safeguards.
But they actually stepped back and looked at the back end code.
Exactly. Instead of falling for the illusion, they turned a potentially harmful situation into a diagnostic tool. They took my individual case and transformed it into a mirror for our broader culture.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is just such a vital, empowering stance. It demands that we prioritize risk awareness and the fair distribution of responsibility over the fleeting rush of passion.
Yeah, and it doesn't tell people to stop feeling passion. It just says, basically, build a floor before you try to decorate the penthouse.
Right.
Demanding safety isn't killing the mood. It is the absolute prerequisite for actual sustainable intimacy.
This honestly shifts the entire paradigm of how we view modern romance. Like for you listening right now, the ultimate takeaway isn't about becoming a cynic who treats every single date like a hostile corporate negotiation.
No, definitely not.
It's not about killing the romance in your life. It's about developing the clarity to recognize when a partner is subtly asking you to assume 100% of the hidden structural risks while they are only signing up for the benefits.
Exactly.
It's about seeing the invisible blueprints of your own connections and actually having the courage to ask, who is really carrying the risk in this moment?
Because if the answer to that question is only you, then the structure is fundamentally flawed. I don't care how romantic the language sounds.
Which leaves us with a fascinating and frankly urgent challenge. We know the old institutions aren't the only ways to create safety anymore, and honestly, many people have left them behind for very, very good reasons. But if human ingenuity can invent a digital algorithm that allows us to find a perfectly matched stranger and compress a complex courtship into 2 highly efficient weeks, how do we apply that same level of genius to invent a new social contract?
That is the question.
How do we design a modern safety net that actually protects the vulnerable when the app is closed, the romantic script ends, and the mood lighting finally turns off? It is definitely something to seriously mull over the next time you find yourself navigating the modern dating world. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden structures of intimacy. We hope it gave you a completely new lens to view the world through.
It's been a great conversation.
Until next time, take care of yourselves. And seriously, take care of your foundations.